So Formik helps us build robust, maintainable, and user-friendly forms with powerful validation capabilities in React.js. And it provides an incredible developer experience as well. That is why a lot of companies are choosing it to build the forms inside of their apps. Alright, so open VS Code over here and let's go on and initialize a brand new React.js app. So I'm going to say npm create wheat at latest and press enter. It's going to ask us to proceed. Yes. Project name, since I'm already inside of this Formik folder, I'm just going to press dot and press enter. Let's choose React and TypeScript. And there we go. It has initialized a brand new React.js app. Let's go and install the dependencies. So I'm going to say npm install. All right, it is done. Let's do npm run dev and let's run our app. And inside of this src, we have this app.tsx. So let's get rid of everything inside of this return. I'm just going to have a div which will say subscribe to Roadside Coder, which you should if you haven't yet. Let's remove all of these imports from over here as well, and let's see. There we go. We can see subscribe to Roadside Coder right here. Awesome. Now, what I'll do before jumping into Formik, let's go on and see how we used to make traditional form before something like Formik or React Hook form, right? So let me just write that real quick and I'll come back. All right, so here it is. This is the code for this form. And don't worry, I will explain you everything bit by bit. So let's see this first. So here it is. We have first name, last name, email, age, like all of the types of fields that we typically see in a form in real world, right? Like a select box, address, and this address is actually a nested field. So if I show you, you can see this is a nested field. We have a date field, we have a hobbies array. Now over here, if you type something and click on add hobby, this gets added and you can add something more. Like if I say gaming, add hobby, and you can see we can add as many hobbies as we want over here. And if you check on this subscribe to newsletter, it will show you the box, how did you hear about us, right? So you can fill any details right here and you can submit the form, right? But you can see I have not filled the first name, last name, email, gender, address, etc., right? So it's showing us these errors right here. Okay, so let's see, let's have a look at the code, how we used to traditionally create forms. First of all, obviously we're going to be creating a use state over here with all of these fields, and I've used TypeScript right here. So you can see I've defined the types for the form data. For our address, since it's a nested field, I have created a separate interface which contains city and state. Same for our hobby as well, since it's going to be an array, right? So in real world, in most cases, we will be using TypeScript with these, right? So that's why I've created this in TypeScript. And you will notice how easy it gets when we go on to use Formik to store our data, right? And if we further go down, you can see we have separate states for errors, is submitting, we have handle change as well. So first of all, let's go on and have a look inside of our form. So this is our form tag, and we have this on submit function, which will trigger this handle submit right here. And we'll come back to this. So you can see inside this form, we have separate fields. Like for example, for our input field, we are providing the name, the value is going to be form data, our state dot first name, and on change, we're triggering this handle change right here. And notice how complex things get over here. We are taking out the name and the value of that particular field. We're splitting them and then storing it inside of our state, right? This is pretty complex. And if I show you right here, we have a separate paragraph which will display our errors. So if there's any errors inside of this errors object, it will show it right there. Okay, then after this we have last name, email, age. Then we have this select box. Again, we're triggering the handle change over here as well. We have the address, which is going to be handling the nested values of city and state, right? Then we have for the date, and you can see I'm using this date picker from this React date picker library. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to be using on change over here, right? Then we have this hobbies array. Now this is something which makes things a little bit complex. I have a completely separate handle change function. So you can see handle hobby change. We are sending the index and the current hobby, right? So we are taking out the event, like we are taking out the value from this event.target. And then we are setting the hobbies accordingly. So if I change, let's say in the second hobby, right, it's going to be updating with respect to the index over here. So again, a lot of code being written right here. Again, errors. To remove the hobby, we have completely separate function again as well, right? Then after this, subscribe to newsletter. Over here, if we check this checkbox, it's going to make change inside of our form data. And then with respect to that, we can display this input right here with the handle change, right? And then also we have this root, which is basically for server rendered errors, which I'll also show you how you can manage using Formik. Now, let's have a look at our handle submit function. Now, this is where things get messy. We are taking all of the data right here And first of all, performing some validation. So you can see for each and every field, we have separate validation, and for emails and stuff, we are using regex, age, gender. Then we have these nested error checking as well. And I'm not even including password over here. Imagine how hectic it would have been to implement something like checking a password for 8 digits and then 3 4 more criterias, right? And then you can see we have this hobbies. We are checking all of the hobbies for validation to see if it's fine or not, right? And then we are submitting the form, right? So this is an absolute mess. How about we go on and implement Formik over here, and let me show you how things work. But before moving forward, I wanted to tell you guys about something. As a developer, when I'm developing apps using AI, typing long prompts in Cursor or ChatGPT just kills my flow. And I've been testing this new tool called Willow Voice, and it has helped me code 3x faster. Let me show you how. So instead of typing, you can just hold the function key and speak your prompt. For example, create a form in React.js using Formik and Zod Validation library, which will contain fields like first name, last name, email, age, and it types it out instantly for you without the stutters or awkward phrasing. Willow even formats and cleans it up on the fly. And it works everywhere: emails, docs, Slack, Notion, and understands the context to get the tone and words correctly. You can think of Willow like Apple's built-in dictation if it was smart, fast, and accurate. And by the way, it is totally free to get started and set it up. I've given the link to you in the description down below. Trust me, it will help you out in getting things done much more faster. So let me just duplicate this file right here so that you guys can follow along. And by the way, I've kept the complete code in the link in the description down below, so I would highly recommend you guys to open that code alongside with me and follow it. Let's see. So first of all, let's go to our terminal right here. I'm going to open another terminal and I'm going to install Formik. So I'll say npm install Formik. Apart from this, we are also going to be needing a validation library which is called Zod. Now you guys might have heard of Zod a lot. I've covered this in my tutorials as well. Zod is a very popular and powerful validation library which I will show you. And to connect both of these, we're going to be needing a package called Zod Formik Adapter, and press enter. Alright, there we go. This is installed. Let's close this terminal. Let's rename this simple form to Formik form. Alright, now let's see. First thing first, we are not going to be needing these types right here, right? Because Formik will be generating them out of the box using Zod. Now what is Zod? Let me show you. I'm gonna remove these states first of all from over here. We're not gonna be needing them. And now over here. So let's see. When we have a form like this, whether we are using library like Formik or React Hook form, we want to define some schema, right? To make sure the forms are validated properly. We can see these errors right here, right? And to properly structure our form as well. And for that, we use something called as Zod Validation Library. I've already showed you how you can install it. You can install it using npm install Zod. And to create a schema, I'm going to say const form schema equals, and then you can structure it. So I'll say z.object, and z is going to be over here imported from Zod. Then inside of this object, we can define all of the fields. Like for example, first name. I'm going to say z.string. So this is going to be a string, and we want minimum 1 character to be inside of it. So I'll say min 1 over here. And if it does not meet this criteria, then I'm going to throw this error, first name is required. Okay, let's do it for other fields as well. Last name. What if we have an email? Then we can just simply say z.string.email. It comes out of the box. We don't need to use any regex or anything. We can do similarly for age as well. Now for something like a select box, which in this case is going to be gender. So I'm going to say z.enum. That is, it can either be these 3 values, right? If that is not the case, I'm going to say error map message gender is required. If we have nested fields like address with city and state, then we can create a separate z.object, and then inside of it, we can define the separate validations for both of them. What if we have an array field, right? Like this. We can say add hobby, gaming, etc. Right? So we can just simply say hobbies z.array, and inside this array, we can define for each and every object. I can say z.object name. It's going to be minimum 1 character. Hobby name is required, and at least 1 hobby should be there inside this array. Then we can add things like start date, which is going to be z.date, subscribe z.boolean, and referral z.string.default, right? That is, this is going to be default, and referral, that is z.string, and I'm going to say default is going to be empty. And yeah, after this form schema is done, you can simply add this to your form library like Formik or React Hook Form. So let me show you. Over here on the top of this component, I'm going to be creating, or sorry, I'm going to be importing Formik. So I'll say use Formik. This is a hook that comes out of the Formik library. And inside of this, I'm going to say initial values. Now we can provide initial values over here. This is optional. Let's just take these same initial values that we had provided over here inside of our use effect. So I'm just going to be taking this object right here and I'll be pasting it here. Now this, I'm going to say const Formik equals useFormik. This will also provide us with something called as onSubmit function. So colon async, and this will be a function just like this, which will be triggered when we submit our form, right? We will get back to this very soon. Now over here, if we want to add our validation, our Zod validation, we will say validation schema, and we will import to Formik validation schema. Now we have installed Zod Formik adapter so that both of these work flawlessly. So over here, I'm going to provide my form schema right here. And yeah, that is all we need to do to set up Formik with Zod. Now let's get rid of these functions. We are not going to be needing them. Handle change, handle hobby change, add hobby, remove hobby, handle submit. I'm just going to get rid of all of them right here. And we're going to be destructuring this Formik object. So I'll say something like this. And we're going to be taking out few things. So if you press Control space right here, you're going to see it provides us with a bunch of things over here. Like for handling the errors, we have this errors right here. If you want to check the values inside of your form, we have values, we have handle change, we have handle blur, which is a built-in blur handler for touched states. We also have a handle submit function along with manually setting the field value. So I'll say set field value, and also loading indicator. So is submitting. If any field is touched, we have a touched object as well, which will tell us which of these fields is already triggered, right? And notice we don't even need types over here because Zod has done that out of the box for us through this validation schema right here. All right, cool. Let's go on and see how we're going to be using all of these. So first of all, right here, I'll come back to this handle submit. I'll just comment it for now. Now over here in our input fields, you can see we have value form data.firstname. Instead of this, simply I'm going to say values.firstname. This values is coming from right here, right? So values.firstname. On change is going to be handle change. This is coming from over here. So this, notice we don't need to create a separate handle change for this. Now this will handle it out of the box. For on blur, we have handle blur, which we have taken right here, right? So as I told you, this will handle our touched state. Now if this field has any error, this errors object will work out of the box. We don't need to do anything over here. No separate state, nothing. But we have one more level of handling over here. I'm going to say touched.firstname and errors.firstname. If both of these are true, then we're going to be showing this error right here, right? That is user has touched this, but there's an error inside of this field, right? Okay. Now I would recommend you guys to try to go on and change these other fields as well. And let me show you how we're going to be doing this. So then for last name as well, I'm going to be adding touched.lastname. Same with email. Instead of this value and on change, I'm going to say values.email, handle change, handle blur. And over here, I'm going to add touched.email as well. What about age? Now, this is a little bit different. So first of all, I'll just provide values.age over here. For on change, I want to, so this is provided to us in form of a string, right? And we want to convert it inside of like to a number. If we have provided something like 20, right? This should be a number instead of a string. So over here in the on change, I'm going to say set field value. So if you notice, I've taken it out from this Formik right here, right? So this allows us to manually set the fields over here. So for age, I'm going to say parse int to convert the string to integer, e.target.value. Otherwise, it will be 0. Then same handle blur over here and touched.age. Let's see this select box. For select box, it's actually going to be exactly the same over here as well. For address, now over here we are on that nested field, right? So instead of this, now we can just say values is going to be value.address.city. First one is for the city, right? So we're going to be handling city over here just by providing .city after this, and then handle change and handle blur will take care of every single thing over here. Same with over here as well, touched address.city. Same you can do for state as well. So I'm going to be removing both of these and providing it with this. And over here as well for handling the error. Let's see the date picker. Now for date picker as well, we need to add some validation over here. So selected will be values.start date, and on change we're going to be using set field value. We're taking out the date, and I'll say start date will be this date. Otherwise I'm going to say new date over here, and we are providing this date type right here. Now for hobbies, things will be a little bit different over here. But before moving forward, if you're preparing for your front-end interviews, click the link in the description down below and you will land on my front-end interview preparation course. This is the only thing that you will ever need to prepare for your front-end interviews. And not only this, I've covered every single topic of React.js, like React Router DOM, Redux, all of the hooks, class-based component, function-based component React, even the performance optimization, which is asked from senior developers a lot, tons of machine coding questions as well, and obviously in-depth interview preparation course on JavaScript as well. And not just this, along with this course, you get an active Discord community where you can ask your doubts whenever you get stuck, and we will be there to help you. So click the link in the description down below, because right now we're having the biggest sale of the year for a very limited time. So don't forget to check it out. Or you can also scan this QR code on your screen to go directly to the course page. So for handling the array type inputs in Formik, we have a component called field array, right? And this will take name equals hobbies. Inside of this will be taking a callback. So inside of curly braces, we're gonna have a callback right here. Inside of this bracket, I'll take two things, push and remove. Both of these are going to be function, and notice these again come out of the box. We don't need to do any separate implementation like we did the last time, like add hobbies or remove hobbies. I'm gonna have a div right here. I'll return this div. And instead of this, I'm gonna be taking the whole of this thing till this button right here and paste it inside of it. Instead of the form data, I'm gonna say values, and notice we have hobby, index, and let's see on change. Again, the same thing over here as well. Hobby.name, handle change, handle blur. For errors, I'm gonna say touch.hobbies.index.name has an error. So we're gonna be checking for a particular index, right? So that we can display it right below it. Same for errors as well. And the type of this is an object, right? Then simply we're gonna be displaying it inside of a paragraph right here. Same for over here as well. I'm gonna say values.hobbies.length is more than 1. Then we're gonna be having a remove hobby over here. And instead of this remove hobby, I can simply say remove over here from right here. And for adding it, we can say push, actually like this. So push and the name, which is going to be empty by default. Okay. All right, let's move further. Subscribe to newsletter. Now for handling the checkbox, it's going to be similar. So I'm going to say checked values.subscribe on change handle change function right here. And if this is true, so form data.subscribe is true, right here I'm going to be adding value on change on blur. For the error, I'm going to be adding touched.referral. Okay. Now after this, you can see in the button we have this is submitting, which comes out of Formik. So again, this will work exactly the same. Now what about these server errors? Now for server errors, there is no such thing as root which comes out of the box, but we can manually define it inside of the onSubmit function, and I'll show you. So for now, we can just simply say errors inside of parenthesis as any, so that it does not show us any type error over here. Okay, and over here in the subscribe as well, this should be values.subscribe. Okay, now one thing that I forgot to do over here is for our form, we have to wrap this in something called as Formik provider, right? Let's keep this closing bracket over here. And this Formik takes value equals the Formik object. So basically this Formik object from over here. So what I can do instead of this, I can say Formik, and we can destructure Formik over here. So this equals Formik over here. And yeah, I think that should be good enough. Now what about our handle submit? So we are going to be using it right here on submit, handle submit, and then this will trigger this on submit function right here. Let me just bring this down over here, and let's see how we can work with this. First of all, let's see if everything is working fine up until this point or not. So if I just take this Formik form right here and go to app.tsx, and I'll just paste it over here, and let's import it, and let's go back and see. Okay, there we go. This looks good, and you can see after we have touched it and removed our cursor, it's gonna show us the error. This is the power of that touched object that we used, right? So let's use this. What if it's an invalid email? You can see it shows us the errors in real time right here. If I type something, if it's an invalid, it's gonna show invalid email. What about age? If it's less than 18, you must be 18 years old. I can make it more. Yes, this is fine. Awesome. So you can see everything is working fine up until now. All we have to do is add the submit logic. And by the way, we have this simulated API right here. When we submit our form, this will be triggered and it will be either rejected or resolved. Now over here inside of our onSubmit form, like onSubmit function, we will take values, that is values of our form. And then it can also take an object, right, which will provide us a lot of things from Formik. Like for example, set field error, right, to manually set that root error, if you remember, that we are displaying to handle our server errors. We can also have this set submitting, right, to set our loading if we want to customize our loading in a certain stage. And then simply inside of it, I can have a try catch block, right? So inside of try, I can say const response, await, simulated APIs, and we can provide the values right here inside of our simulated API function. If you remember, this takes the form data. If it fails, then it will go to this catch block where we are doing set field error and we're setting a manual error called root over here. And then finally, we are saying set submitting to false. Awesome. Now our form should work fine. Let's go on and see. So I'll say Piyush Agarwal, some email over here, age, I can say some age over here, mail, address. Okay, this address is not working properly. Let's go on and check. And for the reason for that is this. So we have name equals city over here, right? It should be address.city if I'm not wrong. And over here, address.state. Let's see if I try to enter something. Yes, now it is working fine. Some random date over here. Let's add some, again, hobbies also creating some problem. Let's see. Over here, the name should be hobbies and the particular index, right? So it can refer to it, dot name. Okay. Now we should see it working. Yes, coding. And oops, I accidentally submitted it. So you can see we got the server error. But let's just add this hobby. Let's add one more hobby and I'll just open the console. Let's see the console. I'll say subscribe to newsletter, something random over here, submit. Let's see if this is submitted. Yes, this is submitted now. Awesome. You can see our data and everything right here. If we let's say remove anything, or let's just age is less than 18, you can see we can see these errors in real time right here. Awesome. This is how you go on and create a form using Formik and Zod. Now one more thing that I need to show you is if you go to the Formik's documentation right here, right, they have some pre-built components right here. Now in most cases, the process that I showed you in this video, this is how most of the companies build their forms, right? They do not really rely on external components. But if you want to make your life much more easier, Formik provides a lot of inbuilt components over here, like error message to display the error message. So you can see something like this. You don't have to create separate paragraph tag or anything, right? They have this field component for all of the input fields and select fields and bunch of different things. Field array I've already showed you for handling the arrays inputs, right? Form component as well, right? So yeah, I would highly recommend you guys to go on and check their documentation out and let others know in the comments down below if you found something useful over here. So awesome. If you like this video, hit that like button right now because it motivates me to make more such videos like this. And don't forget to check out below from the link in the description down below.